who were asked sell me this pen during a job interview. How did you answer? Story 1 easy. Tell the interviewer you cannot, because your sale method is not selling a customer something they do not need, but match the right customer to the right product at the right time. Story 2, I did this once. I didn't take it seriously at all, since it was for selling advertising on the 8th ranked country station in a small liberal town. Instead of selling the guy a pen, I got him interested in buying a pontoon boat as he mentioned having a bass boat earlier in the interview. He was like, sell me this pen. And I said, why are you in the market for a pen right now? Is that a problem you're having a hard time solving yourself? And then we started talking about free time and hobbies. It totally worked, and I don't know how. And I also didn't care because that job sucked. Story 3, I asked, may I see it? I then put it in my pocket. He asked for the pen back, and I tried to charge him 10 for it. I didn't get the job or get to keep the pen. Story 4, during an interview for an electronic sales job, the interviewer asked me to take home a fairly expensive floor model of Blu-ray player and come back the next day with a sales pitch. It was very strange to put trust in me, as he had just met me in the interview 5 minutes ago. I came back the next day with a bunch of product knowledge and landed the job, worked there for several years, and oftentimes the boss would send us home with cool new electronics to try out, sometimes even keep. It was a rewarding place to work and also a great way to get product experience sales staff. Ran out of business by Best Buy, unfortunately. Story 5, stood up and off out of there. It was a job for truck driving. What an edit. Thank you for the silver award, kind stranger, my first award. I am indeed honored. Story 6, not me, but a former sales manager was a douchebag who prided himself on being the greatest and the only one who knew everything about sales and tech. He didn't, hence the word former. He was trying to find a new salesperson but rejected nearly every resume I put in front of him for nitpicky bullshit, until one day he announced that had found the perfect candidate and was bringing him in for a formal interview, but he was pretty sure he was going to hire him on the spot. He kept going on and on about how this guy was perfect, and why couldn't we find him someone like this, and blah, blah, blah. Whatever, fine, just get it done. He bought the guy in, sat him down, and said, sell me this pen. The guy picked up the pen, handed it back, and said, I don't play pen games. Then he walked out, and we never heard or saw him again. Story 7, I was told that I was the owner of a pencil store, and my interviewer said that he only needed a pen. When I started to pretend, offer him a selection of pens, I was stopped. No, your only inventory is pencils, specifically the real life no. 2 pencil on the table between us, so I changed tactics. If you're in that dire need of a pen, then I'm assuming that something must have gone wrong with your day. If everything was according to plan for you, you'd have a pen in your pocket and would have passed my shop by and gotten on with your life, but something went wrong, which happens. If I sold you a pen, then it could break, it could ruin that nice suit, and a 3-cent piece of plastic could cost you hundreds of dollars in the process, all because something simple went wrong. If something goes wrong with one of my pencils, the worst outcome that could come from a pencil. Here I hold out the pencil, and snap it half, you just end up with 2 pencils. I hate sales, but I'm still completely dorkily proud of that particular bullshit. Story 8, not quite the same, but I was filling out an application for a job once when the owner came back where I was and said, if you can name the song on the radio right now, you can have the job. I was able to name it and started at 5 that night. Story 9, I once had a job of a shitty office supply company. You know the one? Where it was our literal job to sell pens to people and try to upsell them on stupid they didn't need or want. It was all randomized and scripted, though, as to what it would try to upsell them on. I see you bought a bulk package of 100 big pens today for like $8.99. Would you like to purchase 4 micropoint gel ink for a color pack of pens for $11.99? It was absolutely ridiculous. I almost always refused to do it because it was stupid, and the customers generally appreciated the fact I wasn't reading them some pre-scripted bullshit on some garbage they didn't want need. My stats were fantastic, but because I didn't do the upsell bullshit, I was eventually fired. And not because of that, they decided one day I had a customer on hold too long, 4 to 6 minutes, while trying to find them an answer to their question that required me to get up from my desk cube, track down my supervisor, who then had to track down a manager. That place, I was asked a variation of this question during an interview at Radio Shack. It wasn't sell me this pen, though it was sell me a cell phone plan. My entire response was more or less on-the-fly bullshit, so I don't remember what my exact words were. Basically, though, hey, raise what I said. No, I'm not going to try to upsell you, but I'm going to tell you the truth. A growing number of your friends, your family, and your coworkers have cell phones, and they're adapting to a world wherein everyone is reachable at all times. Moreover, they're increasingly communicating by way of text messages, and if you can't send and receive those, you're going to end up missing out. Loved ones might worry when they can't get a hold of you. Employers might pass you over for promotions, and you might be the last to know when something big is happening. Now, I don't know you. I don't know what your needs are. It would be dishonest of me to say that you have to sign up for a cell phone plan today, so I'm not going to try to sell you one. At the same time, though, I do like to help you with those needs. And if you think that you'd like to keep in touch with the people in your life, then I'd be happy to help you. The eyes of the guy interviewing me kind of glazed over while I was going through all of that. Afterward, he half-heartedly said, yeah, okay, so it sounds like you're a good salesman. How do you feel about working weekends? I was initially excited to accept the job, but after I thought back over my above-described spiel, I realized that I wouldn't feel good about hoodwinking people into purchases. After all, upselling from behind a veil is still upselling, and it wasn't something that I wanted to do. TLDR, I sold him the pen by pretending that I was refusing to. Story 10, I asked them why. You already bought it. They told me I had to prove my salesmanship skills, so I said, why? You already paid for it. Clearly the product speaks for itself. Just like our product does, I got the job, but it turns out I was actually interviewing to be a janitor, and they got me confused with someone else. Story 11, as an engineer, I've never had this question asked of me. That's because engineers aren't good with people. So you have a people person like Tom Smykowski to sell the pen. Story 12, I was once at a job fair where this wasn't even attached to an interview. It was more like an open mic night kind of thing. I skipped it, edited on another job. A customer told me that my describing my dislike of upselling was a bonding experience with a customer who doesn't want to be upsold and thus a really slick sales tactic. He didn't seem mad. So either sales is really 12th dimensional Zen chess and I accidentally made a good play, or he was just messing with me. I don't know. Story 13, I made it emotional. Through some internet research, corporate people put everything on LinkedIn. I learned that his high school-age daughter was really into horses. I asked him to picture himself writing a check with his pen for a perfect saddle for his daughter, while she looked on in admiration and think of all the hard work and sacrifice they had both made to make that happen. And told him that now, whenever he looked at that pen, he would remember that feeling. Was told later that the only part of that whole conversation that mattered was I did my research beforehand and was able to use it on the fly. Turns out his daughter is a spoiled brat, and he could care less about another saddle. Story 14, I sold a guy a truck. About a week later, he interviewed me for a job. Didn't know it would be the same guy. He asked me the pen question, paused, and said we did that last week, and moved on. Story 15-1, I'm not interviewing to be a salesman. Asking me to sell you a pen would be a total waste of my skills and talents. 2, if you're in the habit of buying things which you already own, I'm afraid to know what other poor business decisions you make on a daily basis. Either way, I'm surprised the company isn't circling the drain already. No wonder you hiring. Story 16, tell them the pen sucks because it's probably some big piece of and offer to sell my Uniball Jetstream, which is the best lower price pen on the market. Story 17, let's put aside buying the pen. I will work for you for the first 6 months for free. Just sign here smooth. They gave you their only pen. They want it now. Proceed to the pen before cleaning your ear with it. Offer to clean the interviewer's ear. Act annoyed when Husher refuses. Sulk a little. Accept the job will not be yours. No, but I was asked what were your grades like in high school. Pulled a Turk and said my girlfriend wasn't the only one with 64 DS in high school. Story 18, I held it up like a dagger and told him I was going to stab him through the eye with it if he didn't buy it in the next 10 seconds. I did not get the job, but I got 417 and a nice watch for the pen. Story 19, hey, I just placed orders for 2,000 of these pens with Elon Musk. They're unique, and Elon wanted to ensure that he had exclusivity. He gave me this pen as a gift and a thank you. I don't really want to sell it, but you seem like a decent chap, so I'll let you have it. They cost Elon 25,000 each, but I really needed 20. So, hey, raise a penny. If you have a 20 bill, it's yours for $19.99. I got the job. Story 20, I asked if they had another pen. They said no. I pointed out the papers in front of them that they'd be diligently writing and signing on, and that without a pen, their job just became impossible. I then offered to sell them my pen instead. It had more ink and a rubber grip. It was customer service and sales for a telecom, and my bonus checks from sales were chunky. Story 21, if someone asked me that in a job interview ID, get up and walk out on the spot. If you watched that movie and came away with the conclusions that Jordan Belfort is an awesome salesman, then I definitely do not want you as a boss. Story 22, oh, I just looked at it, tried writing with it, clicked it a few times, bounced it on the button, and then tossed it at the trash bin. You don't want that pen? Pulled out my own, you want this pen? And I laid it on the table. When they reached for it, I snatched it away and did all the things again, but showed that it didn't make any grinding noises, wrote fluently with no force at all, bounced beautifully on its much shorter button when retracted. Then I let them write with it. I'm a hardware technologist at my base. I know machines and manufacture practices. He asked where to get the pen. Story 23, I haven't been asked, but I would take the pen, ask them if they had a pen, which they now do not. Okay, you all say anything important going on today. Inevitably, they say yes. Wow, sure sounds like you might need to take some notes for that. I have this pen, but it's not for sale. Good luck. Walk out, free pen, hooray. Story 24, literally quit the interview. The first reason being that I did apply for a position, which should not have a lot to do with sales, and they kept pushing this how would you sell people stuff since the beginning of the interview, so not what I was looking for. Second reason, I assume you're not qualified to hold interviews. If you only copy-paste standard stuff that is outdated already and pretty much a meme, I also assume it won't be different working for a company like this. Just random stuff they found on employee management for dummies and only adopt it because it's written in a book. Not a thought if it fits for their employees or company. But Prof. Dr. Very important businessman said it, so it must be the only way to manage a company. Story 25, it was so awkward. Interviewed for position in call center, and I was like, well, you should buy this pen because it's blue, and that is very nice color. Also, you can see from shape that you can write very fast with it. Then I realized how stupid those sentences sound, and my mind went blank. Interviewer waited like at least half a minute. If I somehow continued talking, which was never-ending nerve-wracking moment, then he cut it. I got the job, and then was fired week after because I just couldn't sell people they didn't need or want. Story 26, I used to work the tech side of sales. My job was to demonstrate the software, consult, help with sizing and installation, stuff like that. I never got the question in a real interview, but in one of our training sessions, leaders sell me this pen. Me, okay, this is a nice pen, and it is pretty good for the job. Let's use it to design a system, make some drawings, and purposely spell something wrong everywhere. Looks good. Let's build it. Oh, we need to fix the spelling of this word. It is everywhere. If you use this pen, you have to start over, but if you had used our product, you would fix it once and move on. I know you wanted me to sell you a pen, but I'm here for the long haul. I'm not going to give you something you don't need, even if it will get me a big commission check. That isn't how I do business. My teammates laughed, my boss laughed, my client exec took me out for drinks, the trainer was pissed. Story 27, I don't see why everyone is so upset by this question. I've worked on the phone a lot, and an audition is pretty standard. Sometimes they give you a sales script, and sometimes they want you to improvise. Story 28, always be closing. This pen, made with care and craftsmanship, is a simple tool that will allow your thoughts to shine on paper. It's a small cost that an executive like yourself will instantly see the value in. I have one to sell, and I can't imagine a better person than yourself to own it. So let's seal this deal right now, as I know you won't let 5 come between you and this item that was really meant just for you. Story 29, a very, very attractive candidate actually once seductively tried to do the whole sexy pen sale thing. She was promptly told to leave the interview as it was not appropriate. Kudos to the hiring HR rep, actually. Story 30, I thought the interviewer was joking because I was a teenager applying for a position at a fast food restaurant. So I jokingly hammed it up like a cheesy commercial, but the interviewer never laughed or smiled, and that's when I realized they were serious. Long story short, it was one of the most awkward interviews I've done, but I got the job anyway. Story 31, to give insight on this question, this is what they are really asking. 1. Do you really know sales techniques? And if so, 2, which one do you use? A lot of people think sales is persuading or convincing someone to buy something the same way you would convince your buddy why the PS5 is better to buy. There are actually methods and techniques in sales, and they're very recognizable to the trained eye. And moreover, many people who think they know there are sales methods out there for some phenomenal reason actually have zero idea what the methods are, like some sort of I know what I'm doing, so you can't fool me. But to answer the question, I use these 3 approaches. 1. Intro, upfront, contracting. 2. The sale, same side selling. 3. Close, double down on what was determined as the same side sale. 4. Obstacle, feel, fell, found. Each one of those is worthy of a book all of its own, which shows just how complex, maybe manipulative sales can be. Story 32. I have been in sales for about 30 years. Never been asked that question, but if they did, I would get up and walk out. I don't like gimmicks. Anyone asking that kind of question during a job interview doesn't sound like a job I would want. It's amateurish. Story 33, I ripped off Wolf of Wall Street and told them to write their name. They said, I don't have a pen. I said, sold, supply, and demand. Then walked out because you got me up if you think I'm doing commission only with the sales pitch of a pen being the only requirement to get the job. Story 34, I was the receptionist at a startup that was just about to go IPO. It did. It was very successful, so they were hiring a lot of new people. Now remember, the receptionist is the secret spy in the interview process. You can tell a lot about a person by how they act in the waiting room and how they speak to the receptionist. The management of this company totally understood that. They always asked for my input on any hire that passed their interview and listened to it. One thing I would do when there was a promising candidate would be have the applicant peek around the freestanding 8-foot-tall wall next to my desk. There was a large pyramid of empty beverage cans on a table there. Company kept a stock fridge, of course. I handed them a Nerf ball. I told them to chuck it over the wall, and if they knocked over some cans, I would put in a good word. Now you have to understand this was back in the heyday about the dot-com boom. Probably wouldn't work today. It was important to company morale to have a sense of whimsy, and it was appropriate to the product being created and sold. It told me this person was willing to put themselves out of their comfort zone, take a risk, try something new, and would be someone that would fit in company culture. The one applicant who first asked, okay, but who builds the pyramid? And shall I build back what I knocked down was someone I highly recommended. He was management in no time and was fantastic. Story 35, simple. I gave them a Velociraptor, totally free of charge. Then asked them where they were going to keep it. It went down quite well, but there was only one position, so I didn't get higher. The interviewer said it was a nice try, but Sarah tops the class. Story 36, sir or ma'am. I've never thought that small. How can me or you make money if my ambition was limited to a one-time sale of a 2-pin? My sales model is to establish a relationship, understand your needs, and sell you a building. Story 37, I was asked this question during a group interview for a front desk job at my university's rec center. I asked them if there was any type of sales work in the job description, and they said no, so I just got up and walked away. Not going to deal with that BS. Story 38, not a pin, but I was in a group interview for my first job in high school. The interviewer looks at me and gestures to a large fake potted plant decoration next to where we were sitting and said, sell this to me. I was caught off guard and froze, so we all sat there in silence for a few seconds until I finally just blurted out the first thing that came to mind. Want to buy a plant? I've been with the company going on 5 years now. Story 39, look for a different employer. Sales is about finding a way to help someone get what they need, not about bilking someone into a product. What they're testing for isn't your knowledge of their products or seeing if you understand the customers and want to amicably provide for them. They want you to take something arbitrary and try to convincingly hand it off. None of that is honest sales. It's just seeing if you can BS someone on the fly. Is that really what you want to do? Story 40, sorry. I can't sell this pen to you. It is on hold for another customer. I have this other pen. It does cost a little more, but I think you will like it much better anyways. Decades of engineering went into designing the ball at the tip to provide the ultimate writing experience, and the ink has been formulated to dry quickly to avoid smudging that other pens may experience. I feel bad I couldn't sell you the pen you originally wanted, so I could take 5 off the sale price. And if I go talk to my manager, I might be able to convince him to do 10, but no guarantees there. Wait here while I go talk to him for you. Story 41, do you know what this pen comes with? What is it? It's come with free shipping. You don't want this pen? It's a bit out of your price range, if I'm honest. This 2 pencil is a little more your budget. Story 42, this is a sales position question and a good indicator you're going to do a lot of freaking selling in the job. If that was not clear to you and you do not like sales, it's time to bow out and not waste any of your time further in that interview. My answer when I hear that question is, I am an engineer, not sales. I design to fill a need, not fluff something up and convince someone to buy something they already have. Call me if you want a product created, a solution to a technical problem found, or a design verified. Story 43, I took the pen from his hand. BTW, do you want to know how your predecessor made budget every single month without fail? Yes, well, he'll tell you, write this down. Then he looked for a pen, and I waved mine at him with a head nod. He laughed and thought it was funny. Story 44, I would never sell you something you don't need. Only help you find what you're looking for. And if you want to write that down, I'll sell you this pen for $5. Story 45, I would just pocket the pen, then ask for the next question. Before you know it, it'll just grab all the pens. Oh, now you need a pen. You am leaving with your pens? Story 46, so one of those, I haven't seen anyone use one of those in years now. This pull-out own pen. This is the pen that executives put front and center on their desks to impress clients walking in. So you could get your pen for $100 in the discount section of Ross, or for $250, you can have people know you don't shop third hand and buy this one. Story 47, I was honest about the pen. It was a cheap ballpoint pen with the department's name and contact information on it, and they had a box of hundreds of them. And so that's what I told them. In your line of work, this is the pen you need. It's bright red and easy to find. It's individually incredibly cheap, so that losing it won't ruin your day. But it's reliable and comes with built-in advertising. It's not the best pen in the world, but it is the best option at your price point and needs. Best job I had in college. Story 48, me this pen. Right here. Interviewer, yes, this pen. You know, I wouldn't feel right about that one moment. Puts pen in pocket. I have an even better offer for you at the same price. Removes the same pen from pocket. Interviewer, we haven't even discussed price. And that's the same pen I just gave you. Me, don't worry about the price for now. Look at the pen closely. You'll see it's better than the original at the same price. Grabs additional pens of the interviewer's desk while he's looking at the pen. Interviewer, it doesn't look any different to me. So how much would you say a pen of this? Fantastic quality is worth. Interviewer, I don't know too, me more in fact, but if you agree to buy from me again, it'll throw in these 2 additional pens and even give all 3 to you at your 2 price point. Pulls out additional pens stolen off the interviewer's desk. Interviewer, I see. Yes, you're perfect for selling insurance. Me, thanks. Can I have one of those pens, please? Story 49. I said, so I'm from your office supply company, and I've noticed you use a bunch of our blue ballpoints number 82, X908. We've had a new model that's similar priced, but writes a little more easily. Would you like to add some to your next order and give them a try? Then pointed out that selling one pen is not the same as selling 1,000 pens a year. I didn't take the job. Sales is just lying with fewer steps. Story 50. I was asked this question in my first ever job interview at Circuit City while I was in high school. Did he really think a 16-year-old would have a solid sales pitch? Story 51. No chance anyone will see this, but here goes. I took the pen, looked at it, threw it in the trash, and said, you don't want that piece of, pulled my cross pen out of my pocket and said, you want a quality writing implement. Then I sold that pen. Story 52. I've never been asked this question, but thought about it a lot. My strategy would be to ask to see the pen. Then I would ask some math or hypothetical that would involve the person to write things down to keep track of everything and answer correctly. Assuming their memory isn't amazing, they need to buy the pen back. Story 53. No, then pocket the pen. Two possible outcomes. Either they say very funny, okay, give it back, in which case what's it worth to you, or you score a free pen. Story 54. I am so glad I never had a job interview with a question like that. One thing about working in the prosthetics department of a VA hospital, our clients didn't have to be sold on what we had to offer. Story 55. His is what I did. This is a nice pen, but what you need is something with more gravitas, something that makes the right kind of impression. Something like this. Take out the really nice 30 pen I bought at Staples that gets smaller hand you twist and carries in a pants pocket. No leaks. Now you can't have this one impartial to it, but I know a guy and I can hook you up. Try it out. Story 56. This pen. No. This pen isn't for sale. Tuck's pen in a pocket now. I have plenty of other pens I would be happy to show you, but I'm afraid that pen isn't one of them. Story 57. I asked someone to sell me a pen. He looked at it and asked this pen. I said yes, and he thought a moment and said, I'm going to need about tree 50. It was about that time that I realized that this man was actually a giant crustacean from the Paleozoic era. I said, you Loch Ness monster. You ain't getting no tree 50 from me. Story 58. I sell him on the fact that it is a dual-purpose pen and prove it by stabbing him in the thigh with it. Sell me a pen. That's why to interview, I walked out as they told me it was an engineering position and kept asking me marketing and sales questions. Story 59. Who is your favorite actor? Josh Brolin. That's such a coincidence because Josh Brolin actually gave me this pen after he signed my Avengers poster at Comic-Con a few years ago. Story 60. Are you in the market for pens? No, right, have a nice day. Yes, it sounds like you in the market. What was about this pen that piqued your interest? Story 61. Not me, but my wife. It was for a marketing class, which was part of her business master's program. She had to sell one of those 4 colored pens. I told her to go in with a fistful of colored pens and a single 4-colored one, slammed them both down on the desk, and asked which they prefer. She got an A on the presentation. Story 62. Oof, yes, years ago, I went full Don Draper on him in marketing. It went something like, and this is more graceful than the original, because I was kind of nervous wreck, so these days we don't write very often, do we? We've all got phones or laptops, we text, we email, so when we write something, it's often a trivial matter, like making a grocery list or ticking boxes on a to-do list. But sometimes it's for something important, like when you write your signature on a loan for the business you've always wanted to start, or for the home you've worked so hard to buy for your family. So when you pull out a pen to sign your name on that important day, and you've got a disposable pen in your hand, what does that say about your character? How seriously will you take this contract? How seriously will you uphold a vow? Sign the contract with this pen, and at worst, no one will notice, but maybe they will. And if they do, they'll see someone who takes care of the details by this pen. Story 63. It was a water bottle. I noticed the ring on his hand. So I asked what water him and his wife are currently using, and if they have kids, what do they drink? Shot the and got to know him for a few minutes, and sprinkled in a pitch here and there. The objective isn't to actually sell the pen. The interviewer just wants to get a sense of your style and how well you are at conversing with customers being put on the spot. Story 64 had an interview with a car dealership, and this was their first question. It was one of those Parker pens that write well, and it seems like all execs have them. I unscrewed the pen and handed it back to the interviewer, keeping the ink. They asked me, I thought I had asked you to sell me the pen. I said, do you want to pay for something that looks good or something that works? If you buy this ink, you get both. A couple of years later, the owner, one of the interviewers, told me he didn't give me the job because he couldn't do that to me. Story 65. I threw it to the other side of the room and kept going on as if nothing. He got a little surprised and cut in after a minute or two asking, could I have my pen back? I stood, got it, and sat down again and said, I've only got the one, but I can let it go for 15. He was more shocked, but gave me a nod, LOL. Story 66. I had a guy ask me this once in an interview. It didn't go well for him, and I didn't get the offer. The conversation went like this: sell me this pen. You want me to sell you a pen that is already in your possession? He gives me the pen and repeats, sell me this pen. How can I sell you a pen that obviously has no value to you? You just gave it to me for free. If you don't think it is worth anything, how can I sell it to you? This wasn't even for a sales job, but he thought he was being cute because he had probably just seen that Wolf of Wall Street movie. I hate questions like this, especially the how many quarters does it take to stack to the moon type questions. Story 67. I used to ask this question when I was a manager. There was no right or wrong answer. I just wanted to get a sense of whether or not I was dealing with a natural salesperson and find out if somebody could think on their feet. The best answer I ever heard, by far, was a young man who took the pen from me and calmly said, "You're going to need a pen to sign my offer letter, but I noticed you don't have one." I hired him on the spot. Story 68. If you ever go for an interview for anything remotely sales related, you should carry a really nice pen. Don't try to sell them the pen they have. Try to sell them the high-end pen you have and treat their pen as the fiscally responsible option. You have to drive the point home with the cost to refill your pen being more than the cost to buy your pen. Either way, you're gunning for a sale, and it will totally throw them off. Story 69. The pen is already yours. I'm not going to try and sell you something you don't need, but that ink's not going to last forever. Can I interest you in some ink refills and paper products? Seriously though, if a hiring manager asked me that ID, just tell them this isn't the job for me because I'm never going back to that kind of sales. Story 70. Took their pen and told them I had the only available pen. I am a captain now. He wasn't as big a fan of movies as I thought. I did not get the job. Story 71. Take this pen. No, seriously, take it. And test it out on this piece of paper. Now try this paper. Pull demo paper for add-on sale from a shelf. If you came in here looking for a pen, I can get you out the door with both of them for $23, the price of both. Story 72. I had this question, but it was different. It was an apple. I particularly hate these questions as a sales manager, as they are half-assed and show a complete lack of understanding for sales. When I was inexperienced and got asked about it, I wasn't sure about what they wanted to get out of the question, so I explained I didn't understand why and asked lost questions about the question. Why do you want me to sell it back to you? Were they trying to understand about my sales technique? I was just generally kind of confused. I didn't get the job, but then again, when I asked if there was a retainer, they said, "What's a retainer?" So I guess they were kind of in the first place. Story 73. The trick to this is to make sure you don't touch the pen with a bare hand and use your sleeve or a tissue there. Then say, "It is my pen, right? And I'm trying to sell it to you." They will say yes. Say, "Okay." Then put the pen in your pocket, making sure not to touch it. Say you're going to commit a burglary and are going to leave the pen with your fingerprints on it unless they buy it for $1. Say you're serious and that you're crazy. Boom, they might actually buy RHE pen for real. Story 74. Expecting they'd ask that. I brought my grandfather's fountain pen. I told them it costed him around $75, but they could have the pen I'm holding right then for $25. They asked more about the fountain pen than the other. I finally said, "They'll tell you more about the fountain pen and potentially a price for it if you buy this one right now." I was fired before I was hired.